Hey, what's up, listener? Thanks for pressing play. On this episode of the Jock and Nerd Podcast, we are talking to the talented filmmaker whose credits include the documentaries Drew, the man behind the poster, and Floyd Norman, An Animated Life. Writer-director Erik Sharkey making his second appearance on the show. Now, Erik's first feature film was not a documentary. It is a hilariously campy film called Sexina, Popstar P.I., starring the late, great Adam West.
Geek boner.
Erik shares some great stories about making a low-budget movie, his love of cheesy movies, and what it was like to work with and direct Adam West. And hopefully, listener, we'll turn you on to a super fun indie movie you may have missed. All in this edition of the Jock and Nerd Weekly for Thursday, July 6th, 2017.
Check. Check one. All right. This is for all you fans out there. Let's give it up. Be jocking, be nerding. Be funny, disturbing. Be jocking, be nerding. Be spoiler alert. Oh yeah. Be jocking, be nerding. Be funny, disturbing. Oh yeah. Be jocking, be nerding. Be spoiler alert.
What's up, listener? We're jocking and nerding right here on the Jock and Nerd Podcast. Welcome to the show. My name is Imran.
And my name is Rugberto.
He's the rug boy.
And he's the nerd.
Hey, we're sans the jock for this one, but that's okay. We got Rugs here. He's going to carry the weight. If you're a first-time listener, thanks for checking us out. We are a weekly show where we love to geek out about comic book and superhero-related things. We've given you geek news, reviews, and interviews every week if you subscribe for free. And Rugs, we got a great interview for this show. It's been a while. Anthony made that comment that it's been a while since we did an interview. And it's been a while since Anthony's been on an interview because he always seems to duck these somehow.
Because it's, he has to, do stuff.
He's got to do jock stuff. Actually, he went to see Spider-Man Homecoming.
Geek boner.
He's doing nerd stuff.
He's doing nerd stuff for the show. But we had a show, and we have a great interview with a buddy of mine. You've heard him on the show before. He was way back on episode 54. Filmmaker Erik Sharkey joins us to talk about Adam West and his first movie that Sharkey made, Sexina, Popstar P.I., where he cast Adam West. He got to direct Adam West because when Adam West passed, I was like, wait a minute, we know someone who's worked with Adam West. Let's get him on the show. And, I wanted to get him on to talk about Floyd Norman a little bit and get some behind-the-scenes stories with Adam West. And it was a really good interview we're about to play for you.
We've actually done 3 of his movies, including this one. So we did his Floyd Norman documentary. We did Drew Struzan, which he did a great documentary for that. If you haven't seen both of those, they're amazing. And we're going to talk about Sexina, Popstar P.I., which is like a B movie with Adam West and crazy shit about the music industry, crazy high school shit. And Imran saw the movie and he saw it was great.
I watched it last night and I really enjoyed it. It's tongue in cheek. It's a movie that doesn't take itself seriously, but clearly they took making the movie seriously and it comes across. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it if you're into B movies. Before we get to the interview, listener, I want to tell you, visit jockandnerd.com for all the ways to get our show. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Player FM, YouTube, and on all the ways to get in touch with us. You'll find our Twitter, our Facebook, our fun Facebook group, email. You can send us your voice. We will play it on the show. Just visit jockandnerd.com. And if you want to follow along a little bit, you'll find show notes at jockandnerd.com/175 for this episode. And I have all the links to Erik's movies, which, listen, you know me, I like to support the independent artist. Definitely check his stuff out. Show him some love. He'd appreciate it. We'd appreciate it. And he won't be sorry. These are great. He's done 3 great movies.
And he's a cool guy. So that helps too. He's not a dick.
No, he's not a dick. He's a really cool guy. And you're going to hear from this cool guy right now. Let's get to it.
The Jock and Nerd Podcast.
Erik Sharkey, what's up, man? Thanks for coming back on the show. How you been, buddy?
I am good. Thank you for having me, Imran and Rug Boy.
You finally get to meet Rug Boy. I bet you're very excited.
My whole life, I've only dreamed of meeting Rug Boy, so this is very exciting.
I've dreamed of meeting myself a lot of times, too. It's usually disappointment. Every morning, it's a disappointment.
Every morning in the
But you're
mirror.
Rug Boy. How can you be disappointed with being the one and only Rug Boy?
He's got a good point, Ruggs. He's got a good point.
He does have a good point. I mean, the celebrity status is crazy. You should see. I walk down the street.
Mob.
Women are throwing their underwear at my face. Great.
There's felty puppet sluts just throwing themselves at him.
I hear you.
For the loyal listener, this is actually the second time Eric's been on. You were on episode 54, Sharky. That was in November of 2015.
That's right. I remember. We had a nice chat about movies.
We had a nice talk about movies, the old days, the old gang back at Pratt Institute.
Pratt Institute, yes.
The best. You been to Pratt lately?
I lived by Pratt for like 20 years. I lived in Fort Greene up until, maybe about 4 years ago. So I spent a lot of time in the vicinity. I hung out with Scott Weinstein.
There you go. He's been on the show.
Fellow Pratt, and he's been on the show. He was nice enough to take me backstage at Saturday Night Live where he works, because he works on one of the best shows ever.
That's what Scott
Lucky
does, man.
bastard.
Yeah, I know. For a long time now, going on like 20 years. So on episode 54, listener, go back and listen. I'll put the link in the show notes. We talked about your Drew, the Man Behind the Poster documentary. Amazing film. Everyone should check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is excellent.
Thank you.
For anybody who's into art, it's great to introduce people to Drew with this movie.
Yes.
Because then they just all of a sudden get this huge Drew Struzan boner. And they're like, and they realize like all this shit that they've already seen, like in their subconscious of his work. It's so crazy.
That's been the coolest thing about people seeing the Drew movie, is that people know all those posters. I mean, people saw all those Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Back to the Future posters. I mean, he's done so many posters for so many blockbuster movies. It's crazy. But what's great about people seeing the movie is they never put a name to the work. You know, they were like, oh, there's this one guy named Drew Struzan who painted like all these posters I loved growing up. So it's great to see people just like really geeking out over his work and knowing more than just the art. Now they know the person who created all that incredible art. Yeah.
It's a fantastic artist documentary. Dude, you don't have no idea the amount of people I've turned on to this movie, and they've come back and been like, wow, thank you so much for that recommendation. I had no idea that this guy made all these posters. It's really good.
And, the thing that's crazy
I appreciate that.
is that's just the tip of the iceberg. Drew Struzan is like one of a million artists that no one knows who the fuck they are, that we've all seen their work. And it's just crazy that all of these guys are kind of anonymous to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's within the industry, he's huge. I mean, I couldn't believe, like, when I reached out to Drew to do the documentary, he said yes during the first conversation, the first time I pitched it to him, which was incredible.
Yeah.
But then, literally, like, maybe 3 days later, he said, "Oh, I talked to George Lucas. He wants to be in the movie. Can you shoot with him in a couple weeks?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm going to be filming with George Lucas in 2 weeks at Lucasfilm." So all these people who like lined up that wanted to be in the movie, like Steven Spielberg and Guillermo del Toro,
Harrison
Michael J.
Ford,
Fox,
yeah,
Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford. It was so great because we got to introduce Drew and Harrison Ford on camera for the movie. And even though Drew had painted him like a million times between Han Solo and Indiana Jones, it was the first time they had ever met in person because Drew actually does the body posing for all those.
I know, it's a great moment. Great moment. You have to see this movie.
Like, that's the ultimate cosplay. Like, I get to wear Indiana Jones clothes and pose like him, and then like in that moment, you see that they are as giddy to meet each other. And it's a wonderful moment. So then, Sharky, you follow that up with, and this is, we have to mention this, another amazing artist documentary, Floyd Norman, An Animated Life, about the animation legend Floyd Norman. First of all, we didn't get a chance to tell you how much we love this movie. It's an amazing work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I was really lucky. I worked with a really talented filmmaker named Michael Fiore on it. We actually made the film together, and it was one of those things where I met Floyd Norman at San Diego Comic-Con, and we started talking, and he literally said to me while we were talking, "Oh, when I was working with Walt Disney on The Jungle Book," and I just got floored.
What?
I was like,
yeah.
I was like, I never met a human being that ever said that to me, that they had worked with Walt Disney. And he had this incredible, you guys know from interviewing him, he had this incredible long history in animation, like working on everything, Disney classics and Hanna-Barbera and Pixar and luckily after I met him and had like a dialogue with Floyd about doing the movie, I met Michael Fiore, and it was a super talented filmmaker, and he was just coming off of a movie, and we decided to team up and make this movie, and it is a great thing because again, Floyd Norman's hands have been on everything. I mean, he goes back to Sleeping Beauty.
Just think about that. Yeah, the man's career spans from Sleeping Beauty to Pixar. He has worked with Walt Disney and Steve Jobs. Unbelievable.
Pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah. So that's the other thing.
It's incredible.
I got to thank you. Like, Rug Boy and I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to talk to Floyd Norman. Listener, it was episode 138. I will put a link to this in the show notes. The fact that you guys hooked us up with the PR company and they're like, "Do you want to talk to Floyd?" And I was like, "Oh my God, that is a highlight still of never would I thought starting this podcast I would get to talk to a guy who did in-betweeners on Sleeping Beauty, the first black animator at Walt Disney." It was an amazing conversation. And your movie is so good is that when I called him, his wife picked up and I was like, "Oh, I feel like I know you. Like, hi, how's it going?" Like they're great characters. They're great people. And I felt like I knew them.
His wife is fantastic, and Floyd is just the nicest guy in the world. And what's incredible is these stories never end. Like he constantly will tell me and Michael, like, because we have to, we do all these screenings with him for the documentary and Q&As, and there's still stories he tells us where I'm like, oh my God, like they're never-ending stories. I mean, even when we were shooting the movie, one time we were at lunch and then he casually brought up like, "Oh, did you know I did the train for Soul Train?" We're like, "What?" That's like iconic,
That's right.
you know? And it's like we got to put that in the movie. But he just keeps having these stories. Like we were doing a Q&A and he's like, "Oh yeah, one time I had lunch with Rod Serling." You're like, "Whoa. The guy who created the Twilight Zone?"
He's an interesting guy. He's super interesting. And like when we were interviewing him, I had to be on my best behavior. I tried not to say cock too many times. I tried not to say any curse words. I was like trying to be on my best behavior because he deserves a lot of respect.
Yes.
And not that you don't too, Eric, but
no, I do not deserve anywhere near the respect of a Disney legend. That's for sure. Floyd worked with Walt Disney, which is crazy because he's a link to that history of now Walt Disney's this, to such a historical figure, but he remembers like when Walt Disney was in the room with him looking at his drawings for a movie.
Yeah, giving him notes. There's not a lot of these guys left, are there?
No, there aren't. We were very lucky that Richard Sherman was in the film too, who did all the music for Mary Poppins.
Oh, wow.
He did music for The Jungle Book, and he was very kind enough to come to one of our screenings. But no, there's not many of these people left that could say I creatively worked with Walt Disney, and not only that, but Floyd worked with Hanna-Barbera. Worked on all the Scooby-Doo and Josie and the Pussycats, and he always, whenever me and Michael hang with him, like he's always like making fun of that stuff. Like, oh, that was just cheesy Saturday, morning stuff. And I'm like, but I love that stuff growing up, it meant so much to a whole other generation of kids,
I mean, obviously you followed Floyd around with the cameras and you were recording him. There must be shitloads of stuff that like not even in the movie. That's great. Like, what do you do with that? Do you ever want to think about putting it on YouTube or something, or making a channel or something?
That's interesting because the same thing happened with the Drew documentary, where the original cut for the Drew documentary is like 3.5 hours.
Well, I'd watch that. I'd watch that in a second.
Yeah, me too.
You have to be a hardcore nerd to enjoy that, though, because then it's like 3.5 hours of poster art talk, you know. But listen, for me, I love it too. But to get to a general audience, you have to get this stuff down to around 90 minutes. And on the Floyd movie, Michael edited the film, and he did an incredible job. And when we were working together, on the editing, the first cut, same thing, was like 3 hours and change, and you have to get it down to a tight story, because it's like one of those things when we were when I did the Drew movie, I could sit through 45 minutes of Star Wars stuff,
sure,
but the average person at some point would be like, can we move on?
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, in terms of the Floyd movie, it was made through Michael's company, Michael Fiore Film. So, he has all that footage, and you never know what will happen there. There's a Blu-ray that's for sale. You can get that through FloydNormanMovie.com. Not to be like plugging
plug away. And is there bonus stuff on there?
Yeah. There's bonus feature stuff on there. So it's definitely worth checking out. There's more of the animation lunch, which I love. It's like all these old Hanna-Barbera guys in the movie, like swapping stories and stuff. But
I definitely think there's a market for this, the director's cut of both of those movies. Like, I would watch 3-hour versions of both of those movies.
Well, even just little clips of his stories, like a 10-minute clip here or 15-minute story, however long he spins his yarn for, you just let it play out. And if he's got gold in there, you want to hear it,
Yeah, no, Floyd is incredible. He's so outgoing, and the interesting thing about doing documentaries is that it's not scripted. So you're filming, and you'll interview somebody that leads you to another interview, or some event will pop up that you have to go and film, and so the story starts coming together as you're shooting it, and then as you shape it, and so you don't go into it knowing what the movie is going to be exactly. You kind of find it as it happens, and luckily with the Floyd movie, like I said, I worked with a really talented creative partner on that, Michael Fiore, and we made a really good team on that movie.
No, it's very great. The animation transitions were great, and like the historical activism stuff you put in there. Like, the man went to the Watts riots and took photos while there's a riot going around him. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, his life, I mean, in terms of like how many historical things he's seen and been a part of. I mean, when he started working at Disney, it's pre-civil rights,
Yeah.
So, I mean, not only has he had this amazing career, but this career has happened through amazing parts of history. Yeah.
Michael Fiore, you worked with him on the movie. You have any plans to work with him again, or is he still in contact with him, or how's that work?
Yeah, we still do stuff. We still, we do a lot of interviews for the movie. Still, there's still screenings of the movies that happen, and we do Q&As, and I was just really lucky to partner up with somebody that talented. You never know. We talk about stuff, and you never know. I mean, getting a movie off the ground is obviously hard, but there's always something brewing. So we'll see.
Very cool.
So listener, check out both of those movies. But why we have Erik here is to talk about his very first feature film, and it was not a documentary. It was a scripted feature, complete opposite of your last two movies. And
I know.
And the reason why I want to talk about it is because we just lost a legend, the great Adam West, many people's first Batman, first live action on-screen Batman for a long time, for lots of generations of people. And Sharkey, in your first movie, you get Adam West you cast Adam West. It's amazing. So I was like, hey, I know someone who's worked with Adam West. I would love to hear more stories in remembrance of Adam West, because the guy deserves it. So the movie is Sexina, Popstar P.I. And you put that on 2007?
Yeah, it's a really silly, stupid movie.
It's a lot of fun. I watched it last night. You can find it. You can rent it on YouTube, Google Play, and Amazon Video. I rented it on Amazon Video. Really,
nice.
Really fun movie. Like, you could tell you guys are having fun in the movie. And we'll get into the movie a little bit. But Adam West plays the villain, a character called just the boss.
Yeah. He's the super villain of the film.
He is so the plot of the movie revolves around Sexina, a teen pop sensation, a Britney Spears parody, if you will. But she's also a private detective that fights evil in the music industry. It's so much fun. There's boy bands, the boss kidnaps a scientist to build the ultimate boy band, robot band, to take over the world.
Yep.
It's a great plot. And then there's a subplot of this nerdy girl who's trying to get Sexina to come to high school. There's a lot of great things in this movie. But what I want to know is, when you wrote the part of the boss, did you have Adam West in mind from the beginning?
I didn't. And it's interesting because I love like really silly, stupid, like campy stuff. Like I'm a big fan of cheesy movies. Like I actually really enjoy those Sharknado movies. And I love, like,
they're fun.
Like I love like Plan 9 from Outer Space, and I love all this like really just fun cheesy stuff. So I was like, I want to make like a really silly campy B movie. And so one of the things that I always loved growing up was the Adam West Batman TV show.
Of course. Because
it was completely absurd. I mean, the show was ridiculous. And yet, if you're a little kid, you don't pick up on any of that. Like, when you're a kid, you're just like, oh my God, I love watching Batman beat up the Joker, and the Batmobile's awesome, and you get into it as a kid. And then when you start getting older, you go, this is so silly, you know what I mean? And I always loved Adam West's, like, delivery, that sort of cadence when he talks, that crazy way that he delivers lines. And when I wrote the script, a lot of that was in my head. But, you know, I never actually thought I'd be able to get someone like Adam West. I mean, here's a guy who played Batman. He was already really popular on Family Guy at the time, too. You know, he's like a pop culture icon.
Yep.
But, you know, sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes when you just ask and see if you can get somebody, you actually get them, you know? So I remember it was actually the producer of the film, Charles Ricciardi, who first brought up, he's like, oh, I know a director who worked with Adam West. Would you want to, like, you know, I have his contact info. Would you want to reach out to Adam West for it? And I just remember being like, oh my God, yes. Let's reach out to Adam West. That's like my freaking dream, you know? And I never thought he would actually do it, but I was able to get set up on a phone call with him, you know?
Yeah. What was that first phone call like? This is good.
Well, it was crazy because you hear that voice. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. Because Adam West in real life talks like Adam West.
Yep. That's pretty much his only delivery.
Yeah, I mean, he might put it on a little bit more, obviously, for the camera, but it's not that different. Like, he talks in that weird cadence in real life, you know? So I just remember, like, oh my God, I'm on the phone with Adam West, and he had read the script, and he goes, I just have to ask you one question, because I think it's really funny. He goes, but I have to know, is this intentionally supposed to be this stupid? You know, like, is it intentionally supposed to be this funny? And I was like, yes, it's supposed to be a big, dumb, absurd movie. And he was like, awesome. That's like my favorite thing to do is like absurd stuff, you know? And I was like, oh my God, this is so fantastic. And then, you know, when I got that signed contract, I was like, awesome.
Wow.
This is really happening, you know, and the best thing is he does have that sense of humor. He loves the ridiculous stuff, you know, and, you know, he even talked to me about Family Guy, how much like he loves getting the scripts for Family Guy because, you know, he would just say the most outlandish stuff, and it would make him laugh, you know.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
When you were shooting Adam West, did he go off script at all? Did he ad lib, or what was that like?
Yeah, actually, the one thing I realized that when we were shooting with him, when he was doing his dialogue, is that it really pointed out that my script was not good enough for him, you know? As in, some of the stuff was really funny and it was working really great, but it definitely needed to be punched up because I was like, oh my God, I have Adam West, who's got the craziest delivery in the world. And I don't have enough really funny stuff for him to say, you know, like I had a good amount of funny stuff. I mean, I knew he was coming in, and so I made sure to write stuff that he would be really silly and that he'd be good delivering. But when I realized he was there, I realized I don't have enough funny stuff for you to say. Like I'm not getting as much as I can get out of having Adam West here. So one of the greatest things about him was that he was totally willing to like collaborate with me on coming up with like ridiculous things. And so we would just start coming up with like crazy lines to say. And sometimes I would come up with a line and go, is this too stupid? And the ones that I thought were really too stupid were his favorite ones. You know, it was like the dumber the stuff, the more he liked it, you know?
That's great.
And then, and then he improvised a lot of stuff, which was great. Like the fact that he was willing to like come up with stuff too. And I remember there was one line about the boy band where it said like, oh, teenage girls will love him. And I was like, oh, I feel like that's not enough. You need to add something else to that. That's like absurd. And he said, and I'll never forget. He goes, how about if I say teenage girls and horny Catholic priests will love them?
Yes.
And I was like, whoa.
That's a great line.
Awesome. Whoa. Yeah, he definitely was batting 1,000 right there.
I remember that line. I was like, whoa, that's a good line. But it makes a lot of sense why he would connect to this script. Because like you said, his delivery in Batman 66 is what carried that show. The fact that he would deliver these lines in earnest, this absurdity in these costumes, and you just bought it. And I love how a lot of it, you don't get to see him until the end of the movie. A lot of it reminds me of, you do like the little Inspector Gadget claw thing where you just see his hand gesturing and you hear his voice. But even just hearing his voice, you're like, oh shit, that's Adam West. And it's such a great delivery, even in the voiceover.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things about the movie was I was trying to also like kind of rip off James Bond, how they'd always have this villain Blofeld.
Yep.
Who would like, you'd see him rubbing the cat and you see his head, but you'd just hear this menacing voice. And so a lot of him in the movie is this great voice stuff. And luckily he has, so much experience doing like voiceovers for animation. I mean, not only did he do Family Guy, but he did Fairly Odd Parents. He did like he did a lot of animated stuff for Batman too, And so when you record voice stuff with him, I mean, that guy is such a pro in the delivery. And the crazy thing was, even though obviously he's older at the time when we shot it, his voice sounded the same. Like if you closed your eyes and listened to him talk, it sounded exactly like the Batman show. Yeah. And you're totally right about what made him so great as Batman was that he would say the most absurd things, but deadpan serious.
Yep.
Like he never played it up. He just delivered it like, no, this is 100. I mean what I'm saying. This is serious business, which made it so funny. And that's why, like, when we kept coming up with these lines that were just dumber and dumber. I mean, one of the things we came up with together was like, is that we wanted to pick one member of the boy band to be his favorite. Originally, right. Originally his character was like, he loves boy bands, which I thought was absurd in itself, that this old man is like, I love boy bands and their music, But we thought, like, no, we should go even farther and make this even dumber, where it's like, no, I should have a favorite who I fixate on, and I get excited every time about that one guy. So we picked Dustin,
the cute boy,
like,
yeah,
the sensitive boy. And so he's always commenting on, and all that stuff we came up with, together. It's like, oh, I love that Dustin. We need more Dustin.
Ruggs, this band is hilarious. They're called Top That. There's Dustin, who's the quiet, shy, sensitive one. Then there's the bad boy. What's his name?
Oh, Anarchy Al?
Well, there's Anarchy Al, who's the punk rocker who just hates everybody. Then there's the white guy who wants to be black. He's got dreads on. His name is it G something? And he's like,
G-Dog.
G-Dog. And then there's the bad boy, like your Donnie Wahlberg type of bad boy. And they're all robots.
Exactly.
It's so great. But, there's a lot of great commentary on the music industry also in this movie. This movie, like, you made a really good B movie, but it's like an homage to B movies also.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, when I was at Pratt, I interned at a company called Troma in New York that made the Toxic Avenger movies and Class of Nukem High, and I've always loved their movies because they're just these sort of low budget, cheesy, really fun movies, but they are aware of what they're making. Like they know what their limitations are in terms of budget. I mean, Sexina, we made the whole movie for $230,000.
Wow.
And we shot it on film. So it's not, it's not shot on video, it's shot on actual film, which is really expensive. And so, you know what your limitations are. You're like, okay, there's no way we can make a movie that looks like a studio movie, and so you got to embrace the shortcomings in the budget, so like we embrace having like really cheesy looking robots, they're really old school looking.
It works.
They look like they're from a 70s movie.
It's so great. It works. The characters are great. Ruggs, this movie has everything. It has ninja assassins. There's a scene with a dildo. There's a guy in a bear suit mauling an assassin, but it's like a furry bear suit.
By the way, he's supposed to be an actual bear.
Yes.
We were like, let's have the fakest looking bear on earth.
An actual bear, but it's like a furry in a bear suit.
It sounds like the perfect storm of great elements. I mean, you got Adam West in there.
Yes.
The thing is, like, you have Adam West in a movie where Batman was campy. This is a campy. It's tongue in cheek. It's obviously aware of itself, and you're throwing in all this great fun stuff, and you're aware of your budget. You're aware of what it looks like. So, I mean, it sounds like I haven't got a chance to watch it yet, but I didn't know that we were going to talk about it. So I'm going to watch it.
It's like it's a fun party movie to like watch with a bunch of people. Like you could tell that you guys are having fun making the movie, watching it. I got that.
Yeah.
Sharky's in the movie in a great role too.
Oh, you're in the movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
I gave myself a scene because we didn't have an actor for that day. So I play like a informant. I got an eye patch on. It's like so cheesy.
That's one of the funny. That's a funny bit. Like that bit, I laughed out loud. There's a couple of bits that have me laughing pretty good.
Oh, thanks, Ben.
But before we get back to Ed West, I got to tell you one of the best things. First of all, the girl who plays Vera, there's a nerdy girl who's being harassed by these popular fucking high school bitches, right? And one of them dates the football player, and Vera, the nerdy girl, has a crush on she was actually really good. She was really funny. But the best thing is all nerds need to watch this because you can relate. Is this nerdy girl fucking gets the football boyfriend and literally beats the shit out of the high school popular girl who's just a fucking bitch. And it's like such a great moment. I was like, yes, kick her ass. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where she really gets beat down, like she's getting kneed in the face and bloody up. I wanted it to be like raw for the nerd's revenge because I didn't want it to be like, oh, she has the upper hand by believing in herself and turning the other cheek, or like sometimes in movies there'll be like the one punch and then you knock them out. I was like, no, let's drag this out.
This is a beating.
She's been like made fun of by this mean girl through the whole movie. Let's just have this mean girl just get beaten mercilessly.
Great,
Absolutely.
great Nerd's Revenge. You're right. It's not a one punch. It is a legit beatdown, like street fight style, and it's fantastic.
Thanks, man.
I also read on IMDb that the suit he wears his costume came from his own wardrobe. How did that happen?
Yes. We called. I mean, we had a great wardrobe person on the movie. It's funny. It was her first movie, or I gotta give her a shout out. Her name's Kayla Wall. It was her first movie, and then she went on to become Jon Stewart's wardrobe person.
Whoa,
then she did John Oliver. She's doing she's the wardrobe person for the new show. Who's the guy who played the King of Queens? His new show.
Kevin James. Kevin Can Wait.
Kevin James. So she does the wardrobe for that. But this was her first movie, and she created Sexina's outfit and stuff. And so we called Adam West, and we were talking about what to do wardrobe wise, and he goes, "Oh no, I have a great take on this character. I have my own clothes that I think will be perfect, And I was like, "Oh my God!" First of all, he's saving me money, because he's like, "Okay, you're gonna bring your own wardrobe. This is fantastic."
Were you hoping he was gonna show up in the Batman costume?
Oh my God, that would have been great.
I know, right? He showed up in the cowl like, "I only play Batman and everything."
Yeah, imagine. Well, maybe just had the utility belt on. Just that.
That's the belt and the cape. Yeah.
But one thing that he did that was really cool was he wore this shark tooth necklace.
I noticed
it's
that.
It's literally like a giant shark tooth. And he was like, "Well, I thought it would be funny because, your name is Sharky, and I'm wearing a shark tooth." Which I thought was like, "Oh, that's so cool." Like he thought it would be good for the character, but he thought like, "Oh, it's funny because your name's Sharky."
Inside joke.
And...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's wearing a fantastic, it was like a linen leisure suit and like a Hawaiian shirt and this shark. I noticed the shark tooth necklace. I actually met Adam West once, real briefly.
Isn't he nice?
He was
nice.
He was awesome. It was early 2000s at a comic book convention in Novi, Michigan, and he was literally he was just walking the aisles, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And I went up to him. I was like, "Hi, Mr. West, big fan. Can I take a picture?" And he's like, "Yes, absolutely. Where's the camera?" Like looking around for the camera, and then we just smiled and took. And I was like, I had a big dumb grin on my face, and I shook his hand, and he went on his way. And I was like, "Shit, I got to meet Adam West. That was great." But did he have any stories to tell? What did you get to hang out with him? What was he like?
Any Batman stories?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hung out with him. We had breakfast together, and I kind of geeked out. I mean, there was one thing that he did is he had these vitamins and he laid them out, and one was this big green one, and he just right before he took it, he looked at me and totally seriously he went, "I call this one the Hulk." I just geeked out over that.
That's so awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely did ask him about Batman, and yeah, we mostly talked about Burgess Meredith and Frank Gorshin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I guess Frank Gorshin, in terms of the villains, is the one who is his closest friend, and we
Riddler.
talked about Family Guy, the Riddler. Yeah. And we talked about Burgess Meredith a lot, who he really had a great deal of respect for, who played the Penguin.
I mean, these are heavy hitters on this campy Batman show. Like, for the time. Yeah. Cesar Romero, Julie Newmar, Eartha Kitt, Burgess Meredith, like all these great actors in these ridiculous costumes saying these ridiculous things. Like, what a wonderful show this was.
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, he was telling me that, Frank Gorshin really got into it. He loved playing the Riddler, but he was saying that Burgess Meredith hated playing the Penguin because he hated cigarette smoke. And he had to constantly have this, like, cigarette in his mouth on the show all the time, so he was constantly like coughing and everything.
Oh no!
And it's amazing. Like he was talking about how much it means to him that people love the show and remember the show and want to meet him, and he really embraced it. I think there was a period of time when he got typecasted and he wanted to try to avoid that. you know, but it was great that he came back to like going, no, I am Batman. I'll always be Batman. And really being proud of it and embracing it. And he did something was amazing is he started a whole second career of being Adam West.
Yes.
Just like playing like, oh, I'm this crazy guy, which he's not. I mean, obviously he's just like, I mean, he does talk in that delivery, but he's a highly intelligent, talented man. But the fact that he had that kind of sense of humor where it's like, no, I will do all these TV shows playing myself as a lunatic, basically.
That's one of my favorite things about him is that he did embrace it and he could celebrate it with the fans. And there was enough time away from it where he can just be cast as himself. You know, we're still going to get to see him in that animated version, Batman 66. What's it called? The Cape Crusaders.
Yeah.
There's a sequel coming out, and he'd already done all the recording for the sequel. So we got.
I was so happy to hear that because I remember when I heard about them doing it, I was just like, they got William Shatner to play Two-Face, and I was just like,
for the sequel,
okay, so you're going to have Adam West. You're going to have Adam West and William Shatner together. I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, I always thought Adam West is just, you know, you do a slow William Shatner and you kind of get to Adam West.
They're somewhere. And it's funny because Adam West even made a joke when we were with him. And he goes, did you hire me because William Shatner was busy? I was like, no, we wanted you.
That's awesome.
You know, but he was like, he was very aware of the fact that him and Shatner are sort of like the two icons of the 60s that have like, they're the heroes with the crazy acting, like delivery.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
They both just do that. Like they just both have strange ways of talking that make them so great. It's like Christopher Walken.
I was just thinking, I was just going to say that this is your Christopher Walken before Christopher Walken.
Yeah. Like he pauses more awkwardly.
Yeah.
No, seriously. And I was actually lucky enough to do a shoot with Christopher Walken once. And he talks like that too. Like he really talks like that off camera. Like that's how he really talks. He's just like, wow, okay. So like, I mean, even like when you're like hanging out with Adam West, even just when he orders breakfast, you're just like, well, I'll have the eggs, please. You're like, what? Like everything he says sounds funny.
You're like, this is what it would sound like if Batman ordered pancakes and eggs. This is crazy.
That's what it is. And it's funny because at the time I was obsessed with this pilot that he did that never got picked up called Look Well.
Okay.
And I swear to God, this thing it's got to be on YouTube. There's like, it's gotten around everywhere, but it was written by Conan O'Brien and Robert Smigel.
Oh, wow.
And it's hilarious. And Adam West plays a guy who played a TV detective in the 70s on this big cop show. And now he's like a has-been. But in the 70s, he was given an official badge from the LA Police Department. And now he tries to actually solve crimes as an old man with this like honorary badge he's got. And it's
awesome.
Called Look Well.
Yeah.
Totally check it out.
I kind of remember articles about it.
The pilot aired in 1991 in a summer weekend time slot, but it never got picked up. But that sounds like a great role.
And it's famous. It's famous for being like one of the funniest pilots that never got picked up. And so I brought it up to him when we were shooting, and I said, I got to tell you, I love Look Well. And he instantly started going into these long monologues from Look Well. Like he remembered every line, and he did a literal live performance of like his best monologues from Look Well for me.
Wow. Look, so you can watch the whole pilot on YouTube. I will put a link in the show notes. I cannot wait to watch this because I mean Conan O'Brien was writing The Simpsons probably at the time, and those episodes are the best Simpsons episodes. Robert Smigel, what a great creative team. Oh man, I wish there was an alternate universe where this fucking thing got picked up. Sounds amazing.
It is so funny, and he even told me, he was like, it's one of his favorite things that he's ever done. And that's why he's still, like, years later, he still remembered all the dialogue from it by heart.
That's amazing.
Because he liked it that much, you know?
So on set, what were other people's reactions to Adam West? Like, the cast is kind of young. I'm sure they were aware of him.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's interesting, too, because, you know, a lot of them were more aware of him from Family Guy than from Batman. Luckily now, you know, because they're releasing all these new toys from the original Batman series, and there was, and they finally put out the Blu-ray of the Batman series, because you couldn't get them forever. So at the time, it was still one of those things where Batman wasn't getting shown a lot because there was still that big legal dispute, and they couldn't release it, you know, in a lot of ways. So a lot of people knew him more from Family Guy, but there were also definitely people who it made me feel old when they were like, "Oh yeah, I grew up on the Batman reruns on Nickelodeon in the '90s," you know, because back in the day when they released the Tim Burton movies, they re-released all the original Batman shows on Nickelodeon. They were airing them all the time to cash in on the success of the Tim Burton Batman movie. So there were people who actually grew up on it, watching it on Nickelodeon, and yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, it was a young cast. I mean, I brought in some veterans. I brought in Davy Jones from the Monkees.
Who does
the theme
that's
song
amazing.
To the film. Yeah, and that was another thing I loved from the 60s was the Monkees. And we had Annie Golden who's on Orange is the New Black, and she's like a character actor who's been in a ton of movies. And she had a nice cameo in it. But yeah, most of the actors were young, and they were great. I mean, considering that, you know, a lot of them, this is, you know, maybe one of the first things they'd done, or they had done some other stuff, but this is like their chance to be in a feature film in a bigger part and everything. And you know, when you see someone like Adam West on set, there's a respect, and there's just an admiration of like, wow, you're a pop culture icon. You're one of the people who's made it in this industry. You know, it's inspiring. You know, I mean, I definitely feel like so honored that he was in the movie, because it was my first feature film. And honestly, you know, when you make your first feature film, you shouldn't be able to work with somebody like an Adam West, you know, because it's your first movie.
Yeah, the amazing thing about this is your first movie. You got a poster by Drew Struzan, opening song by Davy Jones, and Adam West in the movie right out the bat. That's pretty good for the first movie there. I don't think a lot of people can say that.
Well, and that was the thing that actually got me connected to Drew. That was another thing where I cold called Drew. And I just told him what a fan I was of his and his art. And I literally like begged him to do a poster for the movie. Because I just told him, I was like, man, I had your Back to the Future poster hanging on my wall. I had, you know, the fucking Temple of Doom on my wall. I had all your posters. And I told him my dream was to always make a movie and to have you do a poster. And this might be the only movie I ever make. And somehow that he was touched by it. And he actually, in that conversation, said, "Okay, I'll do your poster." And I'll never forget the thing that he said after that. He goes, "But you're going to have to wait like a month or so, because I'm busy doing the Indiana Jones poster right now." He was doing
Christ.
the one for,
I'm sure I can wait for that.
Crystal Skull. Yeah,
you're like, take your time. That's fine. Yes.
Yeah, but that started a whole friendship with Drew. You know,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And so that's what led into doing the documentary about him. And I also got to shout out somebody from Pratt that we went to school with, Greg Boaz.
Oh,
because
yes.
He shot and edited Sexina, and he also was the co-cinematographer and co-editor of the Drew Struzan documentary. So another Pratt alum has been a great help to me in my movies.
Listen, Boaz has probably the best line for me in the whole movie. First of all,
he kind of steals the movie.
Yes, Ruggs. This is what happens. Sexina is shooting a music video, and it's just a shitty like backdrop that like of a beach. She's there dancing, and there's a guy dressed as Jesus wearing nothing but an American flag thong with a little beach shovel. Dancing, and she's like, "Whoa!" She's like, "Whoa! Cut!" He's like, "What is this?" He goes, "It's rapping Jesus." She's like, "What?" He goes, "It's rapping Jesus," and he raps for her, and she leaves, and then he says the best line of the movie. He goes, "I'm Jesus Christ, bitch!" And she flicks him off. It's so good.
Now I gotta see this.
It's so, dude. It's so
great because first of all, Greg has great dance moves. I mean,
yes,
even at Pratt at all the parties. He would rock the best dance moves, and I give him credit, man. That guy had guts because he's literally got a little thong on.
Yes, he's not wearing anything but a thong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is an American flag song, so it's like on his balls.
Where are the stars? on his balls or
on his balls? And he's got like this big ball sack. But the guy was like, he was down for it. Greg was like, that's the part he chose. I was like, do you want to play something in a movie? And he's like, I want to play rapping Jesus.
He wanted to be chosen. That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
You gotta love Boaz. You know who else I like? The guy who was the guy, the group that opened for her at the high school, that blonde fucking douche guy singing.
Oh my God. That's Greg's real brother.
Oh, I couldn't figure it out. I was like, is that Greg again? Because that guy has some dance moves. Holy shit. He is like, who's that band that sang I'm Too Sexy for Your Shirt? What was their name? Right Said Fred.
Oh,
he is like a douchier Right Said Fred. It's so fucking funny, his whole routine.
Yeah. I mean, he really does pop songs. And it was funny because me and Greg worked on one of his music videos at Pratt, because he went to Pratt too, but he was in computer graphics.
Oh.
But he would always do these pop songs. And so when we need an opening act for Sexina, it was like, you got to get your brother out. And he had a song ready to go. So it was great. We didn't have to record a song for him because he already had this new song that he had done. And he went for it.
Oh, it's
man.
so good.
I mean, he's all out. He's dancing his ass off,
That's another great thing about this movie, man. It's well shot, it's well edited, but you have musical numbers. You guys wrote lots of songs for this movie, and how much fun was it shooting the musical numbers?
Oh, it was really fun. I mean, first of all, I never thought in my life I would co-write a Davy Jones song. So
that's awesome.
That was incredible. And the fact that it was kind of like with Adam West. I mean, I wrote this one line in the song that Davy Jones sings that goes, "She has the boobs and the brains of a queen." I was like, this line is so stupid, And he was like, saying it with gusto, what I mean? And he had a great sense of humor. But then, Dominic Mack, who was the composer for the film, wrote all this great music, and I would write all these just dumb lyrics because I'm trying to spoof pop songs.
Yeah.
And one of the things they all have in common is just these very sort of just very basic, silly, cliche rhymes. You know what I mean? And so I wrote this song, "There's No Stopping Two Girls Shopping," and it goes over an 80s shopping montage, and it's like the tackiest 80s pop song, but that was really fun, and it's weird because it's the easy thing to do is make a movie being cynical and going, hey, this sucks, but in a way, writing all these cheesy pop songs made me actually really appreciate cheesy pop songs, and so it became really fun and infectious,
The title of the Robot Boys band song is hilarious. It's called "You Plus Me Equals We." It's a fucking great title.
After these messages, we'll be right back. Trivia Geeks, the unpredictable game show podcast, is back with a brand new season. They've got a new host, new games, and a new day and time. But that's not all. Now you can download their companion app, Triv Now, and play along in real time. Watch Carrie on YouTube as she tries to convince her partner that his Dark Knight hasn't risen in years. Listen on Diamond Club and Alpha Geek Radio, Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Twitter and get all the latest updates and showtimes.
In an age of steam and gears, of monstrous machines and greedy corporations, in a world of automatons and dirigibles and faster-than-sound sky trains, in a time out of time, where the Americas weathered multiple civil wars, where armies continue to watch from the brink of the next conflict. It is a reality where witches and ghouls live among thinking machines and walking machines that resemble humans. It's a role-playing game. It's a dramatic radio adventure. It's a comedy. It's the Steamrollers Adventure Podcast, available on iTunes or at rigstories.com.
Do you like video games?
Do you like comics?
Do you like movies?
I'm Ellie.
I'm Zinger, and we're the host of
Zing This Podcast.
We discuss nerdy topics every week on our podcast. What are some of the best ways to find our podcast, Ellie?
You can search us on SoundCloud,
iTunes,
Google Play,
and Stitcher.
And don't forget, that's ZENG.
We hope to see you guys there. Every week, we have new nerdy topics.
Yay!
The Jock and Nerd Podcast.
I got a question about like how this all coalesced. So like you've been out of college, you were working in the industry, and all of a sudden you're like, I want to make my own movie. Is that what happened, or you had a script that you wrote, or how did this all come to be that you basically made this movie out of love for kind of the B movie theme or genre? How did that happen?
Well, it's interesting because like growing up, I always loved obviously like the big movies like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Superman, and that was all the stuff I loved in my childhood. But realistically, I was like, I never thought I could get to direct a movie like that because I was like, you need a major studio, you need millions and millions of dollars, and like, how am I going to get to do that? So, but luckily growing up in New York City, I grew up at the tail end of what they would call grindhouses on 42nd Street, which is like a row of just movie theaters that show double bills of like really like crazy low budget movies. And when I used to see those movies, you could see all the flaws. Like you could see like, okay, they don't have the greatest actors, and like the special effects are bad, and they have the cheesy soundtrack and everything. And as a kid, I used to go, I bet I can make one of these movies. Like this seems more like tangible to make like a cheesy low budget movie.
Yeah.
And so, and not only that, but I like those movies. I like cheesy low budget movies.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah. So at some point, I think I was like maybe in my mid 30s when I made Sexina, maybe mid to late 30s. But I was hitting a point where I was like, man, I've always dreamed of making a movie, and I still haven't done it. And I kind of felt this ticking clock of like, you can't just keep putting this stuff off forever because time will catch up with you, And so I was just like, all right, I'm just going to bite the bullet and do it. I'm going to write a really stupid little movie. I'm going to get my friends together. I'm going to max out credit cards. I'm going to just like hustle to get this thing done. And when you're excited about something, it starts like a chain reaction. I mean, I'm very grateful to Greg because Greg was the person who was like, I'll make this movie with you. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so when you have somebody that you really trust and who's a really good friend, it's like, they'll go to the mat for you and be like, oh, I'll shoot this thing. I'll edit this thing. Well, then you got somebody right there. And then I met a producer who was like, he had made a couple features and he wanted to make another one. And he was willing to he was willing to get on board because he thought the script was really silly. I mean, I think that shocked me was how many people wanted to work on the movie because they liked the script. And I always thought that the script being so stupid and silly, especially in New York, where there's so much of the New York film scene is like, kind of highbrow art film, you know. I thought people would be like, I don't want to work on this silly, stupid thing, but it was just the opposite. People really were like, I want to work on something fun and campy, and then it just kind of snowballed. And then, like, before I knew it, we had Adam West in the movie, and then I felt like, oh my God, we have like a bona fide celebrity.
It's a real thing now.
The thing that's crazy about this whole thing is that you at one point said to yourself, okay, I got to fucking make a movie. And then you sat down and you had an idea for a movie, and then people like, I like this idea. I want to get on board, and I want to help you make this movie. And you had people that got it and that liked the script and responded to you, and everything kind of coalesced. So that idea that you had to do Sexina, like that was, you could have had any idea, and it probably, if it wasn't good, no one would have kind of went for it with you. But so you had this idea that people liked and that people are on board with. So that's like a shot of lightning right there.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I mean, I think you can I would love to see another Sexina movie. Like, what else happens? Like, there's a lot of heart. There's a lot of character and heart in these characters for like this B movie.
Yeah, because I wanted it to be fun, and I actually I really do care about what I'm doing, and you could always see the difference. Like, the great B movies are the ones where like a filmmaker went, all right, I don't have a lot of money, but I love what I do, and I'm going to try to make the best movie possible, and people are excited. And you can always tell a difference between those films and movies that are just like trying to be like some cheap cash in on something, and they don't really care. Like, so it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, we all want to have fun and we all want to laugh, and we did. Like, every day we were cracking up. We were like this silly family, and that's what makes it so much fun. And I do think that like shows up in the movie, and luckily, because it's a B movie, even the shortcomings become charming, because I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was green, you know what I mean?
Would you do it again?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Even like when I did the Drew movie, I mean, I'd never made a documentary feature before, and then Drew literally drops on me, oh, George Lucas wants to be in the movie. You got to shoot him in 2 weeks. That's like literally 2 weeks from asking him to do it. I'm at Skywalker Ranch and at ILM with George Lucas, so crazy. Filming with him. Yeah. And you all of a sudden it's like, you got to do it. It's like sink or swim, I mean, I'm finally getting my feet now where I'm like, all right, I've made 3 films and I feel I'm getting better with each film. So, but I always, I honestly think that being green is the only way to not be green is to jump in and do it. That's the only way, and you figure it out as it's going along,
I've seen all of your movies and I love them all. Did you keep in touch with Adam West after the movie wrapped?
We had one phone call afterwards, and it's one of those things where, and I remember because I was, one of the things he said to me that I was really moved by was he was like, you remind me a lot of Conan O'Brien. I bet you guys would get along. You have like really similar sense of humor.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that is so kind of him. And it's interesting how time works, because there's a lot of times, like I do panels at the different Comic-Cons or like San Diego and New York Comic-Con and stuff. And there were times where Adam West would be at the same convention, or times where it's like, oh, there's like some event I'm going to be at. Adam West is going to be there. And it's like, we just never cross paths again.
Oh, wow.
And it's unfortunate, because I kept thinking, even though he was old, he was so youthful and he worked so much. He was always at conventions. He was always shooting guest spots on TV shows and stuff. So he was constantly working, and I kind of just thought, oh, he'll be around for longer. Yeah. Like I at some point I'll bump into him again and we'll talk. I mean, and I'm really bummed that never happened, because a couple of years ago a friend of mine interviewed him, and he actually brought up Sexina, and he had nice things to say about me and nice things to say about working on the movie. And I was like, oh man, that is so cool. And it's just like, it's just a real bummer because you never know, like, when people are going to not be here anymore, you know, because that, even though he was old, that caught me totally off guard because he was literally, and this bums me out too, is I have a friend who throws a convention in Connecticut, and Adam West was supposed to appear at it.
Oh, wow.
And that was going to be me seeing Adam West again. It was going to be in August, so I was supposed to see him in August.
Sucks.
Yeah. And it's just like I couldn't believe it. Like, man, he's gone. And like,
it was like you're like a Batman is dead. It's kind of like a president. Like we lost a living Batman.
Yeah, it is, and it's interesting because I have a friend of mine. His name is Frank Dietz, and he's an actor. He's an animator, but he actually co-starred with Adam West in a cult movie called Zombie Nightmare. And this movie became famous because it was on Mystery Science 3000, so they made fun of it on Mystery Science 3000, you know.
Yeah.
And we would talk about Adam West all the time because Adam West stayed in touch with him, and they became friends after this movie that is this like really bad horror movie, but it's one of those movies that's so bad it's good. I mean, that's why they picked it for Mystery Science 3000. But you know, it was so great to hear like, wow, like Adam West stayed friends with you after doing this movie, and he, you know, and he would have the nicest things to say about Adam West. Like every time they'd see each other at a convention, how warm he'd be to him, or they'd go out to dinner and stuff. And I've met other people that have worked with him, you know, from doing, you know, other people I know that work in animation that he does voice stuff for. And I've never heard anybody say one bad thing about him, like in terms of ever losing his cool or being hard to work with, or like, he's just like, he gave it his all, and he was there to like, you know, to make it fun. And he was nice to everybody on the crew, man. Like everybody, like because, you know, after we wrapped with him, everybody wanted a picture with him, and he took pictures with everybody, and he talked to everybody. You know, I mean, that's like just a good person.
Yeah,
it's
great to hear that. Like, you know, sometimes you find out the people you admire, and you find out that they're just fucking assholes, and it shatters your whole like childhood perception.
A lot.
Yeah. So it's a very you know, rare occurrences where it really is a good guy, and that's all I've been reading from people ever since he passed, that how nice guy. And it's great to hear that. And he will be missed. He did a lot of good. Ruggs, you got a question?
Oh, definitely.
I did, but I forgot it.
Well, look,
that happens to me all the time. But isn't it great that they're like celebrating Adam West so much? Like they did that thing in LA where they shined the bat symbol, and I was like, this is fantastic. They're going to honor him at San Diego Comic-Con, and it's so great, this like outpouring of like love for him, because, you know, there was a period of time where like hardcore comic book snobs would be like really down on the Batman TV show because it was so campy and stuff, but it feels like even they have come around and be like, nah, that Batman TV show is awesome. Like you know what I mean?
You can't,
like, I grew up on
you can't deny it. Yeah.
You know?
The thing about it is you can sit any 5-year-old in front of that show, and then they're going to love it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how old the show is. It still works.
Yeah,
right. It's still got that fun factor to it.
It's to me, like, you can watch it as two different shows. Like, you watch it as a kid, and you're like, I love this. This is completely serious. And then you grow up, and you're like, these people are saying ridiculous things in ridiculous costumes, and it's still
great. God. Yeah. I caught an episode not that long ago where Batman's talking about the Catwoman, the Robin. And he's like, oh, she gives me stirrings in my utility belt, you know? And then, right? And then he looks at Robin and goes, you'll know more about that when you're older. And it's like, what? This kid's already 17 years old. You know?
Yeah.
It's like the silliest shit. But you're right. When you're a kid, you're just like, well, that's Batman. He's the hero of the day. You know, you don't look into it.
Well, that's the thing. When I was a kid, I didn't know anything about Batman. Right. So it's like the show was Batman. But then when I started reading comic books, I was like, oh, that's not really Batman. But for a long time, that was Batman. So
yeah,
it's a weird thing.
It revitalized the comic for a long time. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, yeah, his version is the fun version for kids, and then you have, you know, the Frank Miller stuff, and you have the Christopher Nolan movies, which is where the character is grounded and and is more in reality and taken seriously. And I think what's good now that we have those Christopher Nolan movies is it's okay to have that spectrum. It's like Batman could be the good guy that's meant for little kids, and Batman could also be the serious vigilante that's for an older audience too. You know, it could be all of that.
In their defense, the producers, if they, in the 60s, if you picked up a Batman comic book, it was campy. It was crazy setups and amazing props and gags and, word balloons on the cover. And it wasn't until like the 70s that it started to get a little more serious. But that campy Batman stuck out and got immortalized on the screen.
Even as serious as like Batman was in the Detective Comics from the beginning, in the original comic in the Batcave, you had a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a giant penny 10 stories high.
Yep.
I mean, that's like some goofy shit,
Yeah, it's true. This is all true.
This is all true. So, man, I can't thank you enough for sharing your Adam West memories, because I really like you said, it came out of nowhere, and I was like, I wanted to hear some Rugs. Yeah, you got a question?
I remembered my question.
Okay, good.
I was like,
sure, awesome.
So you shot Adam West. No, I mean, not with a gun, with the film thing.
Yeah.
So do you have like a gag reel of all crazy shit that Adam West said that was not in the movie?
Good question.
Well, first of all, I videotaped all that crazy shit. What's cool is that on the DVD of Sexina and the special features, there is great behind-the-scenes stuff with Adam West. And we do show some of that improv and stuff. And it's really funny because one of the things in the special features is he did this one take really, really well. And then I just, when you're in the recording booth, you have like the mic to go into the booth. And I just mic'd in and went, Pure West. And he instantly started laughing. He was like, The Simpsons,
Yes.
Because that was his line on The Simpsons. But yeah, so I have hours of that stuff.
Wow.
Some of that stuff is in the special features of the DVD for Sexina, which is really cool.
How can people watch this? I mentioned you can rent it on YouTube. You can rent it on Google Play. Yep. You can rent it on Amazon Video. What are the other ways you can watch this movie?
The cool thing that I'm really excited about is San Diego Comic-Con has now really embraced the movie, and it's on Comic-Con HQ, which is their streaming channel. And,
that's excellent.
Yeah, it's a cool service. I mean, Mark Hamill has a show on there, and Nathan Fillion has a show on there, and so you can stream it on Comic-Con HQ. If anybody happens to be in Iowa City, it's screening theatrically at a movie theater called Film Scene.
Wow.
On Wednesday, July 19th at 10 p.m. at Film Scene. It's part of their Grindhouse series. So they're showing all these like cheesy B movies like Switchblade Sisters and all this stuff.
That's awesome.
So this theater is great because they, first of all, $3 Pabst Blue Ribbons, tall boys of Pabst Blue Ribbons, $2 popcorn. Like any movie theater where
Old
you can get like
prices.
cheap beer and cheap popcorn. Yeah. And they show like a lot of great new movies, and they do these great like revivals and stuff. So
this
the Film Scene Theater in Iowa City on July 19th.
July 19th. This film has legs. Sharky, did you think 10 years ago when you made this that this fucking thing would be screening 10 years later still?
Well, what's crazy is sometimes things take their time. It's interesting when I finished the movie, and when you finish a movie and you give it to we had a sales agency that rep the film, a really good one. But when we delivered the film and gave them everything, literally a week later, the entire economy collapsed. This was when the whole Wall Street collapsed.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so for a while, like the movie was in limbo, and it was coming out in other countries. And it's one of those funny things where it was like a big hit in Asia, which always makes me laugh. Like it did great in Japan and in Taiwan and Thailand.
Oh, they get this humor. They would love this because we always say they enjoy kind of like your slapstick humor, but plays well internationally.
They love big campy stuff because it's easy to read, even if you're from another country, because everything in this movie is so cheesily overacted and stuff, that they pick up on all of that.
Yeah.
But for a while, my friends would be like, "When's Sexina coming out?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it should be coming out soon. Should be coming out soon." You know. And then eventually, you know, we got picked up by this great label called Wild Eye Releasing. I got to shout them out. Wild Eye Releasing is a great B-movie video label. They put out stuff like Sharkenstein, The Shark Exorcist.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Shark Exorcist.
Yeah, they put out a lot. Yeah, they actually put out a movie about a guy who gets the devil out of sharks. Yeah, they put out cheesy stuff like Scream Park, starring the guy who plays Pinhead from Hellraiser. And so this label, like the guy who runs it, Rob, is just like we just see eye to eye on B movies, and he's done a really good job of getting it out there. You know, for a long time, it was on FiOS where you could stream it on FiOS, and now it's on Comic-Con HQ, and it's finding an audience over time, because there are people, when I do conventions, most people will want to talk to me about Drew, the documentary, the Floyd documentary, but there's always those sporadic people who are like, I love Sexina. And I just like get so excited because I'm like, I instantly know that I like their sense of humor. Because I'm like, if you'll love something as stupid as that, then I love you for that, because that's who it's for. You know,
that was my question. Like, if you want, because I want listeners to check this out, but it may not be for everyone is the thing, but I love this sense of humor. Like, this stupid, absurdist comedy is great. Who would you recommend this to?
Basically, like I said, if you love like the Sharknado movies, or if you love like, you know, Plan 9 from Outer Space, or if you love the Batman TV series. Like, I love the Batman movie with Adam West where he has the shark repellent.
Yes.
I love that shit. Like, that to me is so funny. You know, so if you can get into that silly spirit of things, you know, or like, even if you love John Hughes movies, I mean, there's a big part of the movie where I'm like making fun of teen comedies and stuff.
Yeah, and there's a little romance. Did you throw a Dutch angle? Did you throw a Dutch angle in any of these scenes? I can't remember.
I think I'm in one scene. I did. I did. I didn't go the full blown referencing it like that, but I referenced definitely the comedy and the cheesy fighting and that kind of stuff. You know?
Yeah, it's a fun movie. I mean, I had a blast with it. Like I said, get a bunch of buddies around, get some beers. You will have a blast watching this movie. It's one of those kinds of movies.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks, man.
And finally, Sharky, before we let you go, what's next for the Sharky? Can you talk about it?
We'll see. You know, I mean, you never know. I mean, there's lots of great people to make documentaries about. For right now, I'm writing for Huffington Post, which I really like.
Yes. Thank you for writing the blog post about the 10 Geek Podcasts and putting us in there with like these crazy podcasts. That's another thing I can't thank you enough. Man. I totally forgot. That was an amazing thing when you're like, hey, I wrote a thing for the Huffington Post and I mentioned you. I was like, what? And it was great. Thank you.
I know. I was pretty floored by that myself.
Yeah, I even shouted you out, Rug Boy. I gave you a shout out in the story. No, I really like writing for Huffington Post. I like writing about pop culture stuff and geek stuff, and yeah, I mean, you know, you guys have a great podcast. I definitely wanted to let people know and spread the word, you know.
That was awesome. It's nice of you. So look, listener, proof. We didn't ask him to do that. I didn't pay anyone for placement in Huffington Post. It was all organic.
And I want to thank you personally. Thank you very much.
All right. Cool, because I heard what you guys were saying. There were no blowjobs. None of that went down.
Oh, shit.
They did not reach out to me in any way. I did it because I love the podcast. I wanted to write about it.
Well, thanks for listening.
I didn't even know you listened. That's crazy.
No, we appreciate you listening.
I love podcasts. And you guys did a great job with Floyd. He was great on the show. I like listening to that, too. Yeah. So
I could have talked to him for hours.
If anyone wants to check out my Huffington Post stuff, it's just Erik Sharkey at HuffPost, and you can see all my stories that I've written. They're all cataloged under my contributor page. So, you know, check out my articles.
Let's give out the final plugs. Well, you talked about Sexina. Where should the listener go to check out all your stuff?
Sure. Drew the Man Behind the Poster is now on Amazon Prime.
Nice.
So if you have Amazon Prime, you can check it out. It's still available on DVD and iTunes and pretty much everywhere. Floyd Norman, An Animated Life, about Disney legend Floyd Norman, the film I made with Michael Fiore, is available on Netflix.
Yes.
So you can totally check it out on Netflix. Or if you want to get the Blu-ray with special features, and the Blu-ray features awesome Drew Struzan artwork on the cover, you can go to floydnormanmovie.com. And you can also check out Sexina on Comic-Con HQ. Or DVD.
Listener, I recommend paying for this stuff. Don't be shitty and stream it for free. We need to support independent filmmakers like Erik Sharkey.
I appreciate that.
And it's
I appreciate
look,
that.
I understand you putting your money into this. It's very important to support the cause and not just because I could have just watched the movie, but I was like, no, I'm going to rent it and I want to give him my money directly.
I appreciate that because, streaming has made it really hard for filmmakers.
Yes.
Well, they're cracking down on it now.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because, everyone, streams this stuff for free, or even if you have Netflix or Hulu or whatever. I mean, it's great because we do get paid for that.
Yeah.
But they don't pay as much as the glory days of VHS or DVD was where you really made your money. So when you actually do pay to rent it or you buy a DVD, that actually does go back to the filmmakers and it really helps, Yeah,
the distribution market is so crazy now, I bet, compared to what it used to be. You're dealing with things you never had to, which is like TV isn't even TV anymore. It's Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Google, what the fuck is going on? It's not just one thing.
There's a huge change in the wind right now, and it's good for people who make stuff. They're starting to crack down on all of this pirating in Europe right now, in England.
Yeah,
they've outlawed pirating. And if you upload anything to a server, they'll hit you. If you're using that Fire Stick or whatever you're using to get stream free stuff, they're just going to start cracking down on stuff. So you won't even be able to download stuff. So you'll be, even though it's. So hopefully that helps, in the future when you make a movie, you'll get that money back, hopefully, and this pirating will kind of cease to exist.
Well, it's interesting because everyone's taking a hit. Even the major studios are taking hits, which is why they only want to put out big sort of tentpole movies where they go, okay, the movie is just one revenue stream for toys, for lunchboxes, for theme park rides, for, where they can make money off of so many different things other than just the movie. Like Star Wars will make a lot of money, but it where the real money is for them is the merchandising. It's almost like a commercial for all those for all the toys. Whereas back in the day, movies made a ton of movies made a ton of money in the theater because people went to the movies or they bought, a VHS copy of it, and that was all massive profits. But those profits, even with major studios, are gone. But with independents, it's really bad. I mean, those days where Kevin Smith can make Clerks and actually make money off a movie like Clerks, they're pretty much gone.
Well, what I wanted to ask you as a filmmaker, say there's a listener out there who wants to be a filmmaker, who has a vision, who has original ideas, and he's looking at this landscape of, Lord and Miller get fired off Han Solo because it's not Star Warsy enough and it's nothing but franchise tentpoles. What is the path for a filmmaker with a vision these days? What do you do?
I mean, that's the hard thing. I mean, I know a lot of people who work in the industry and in other facets, or whether it's special effects or they're composers or, or cinematographers. They're not directors, but they work on big movies. Some of them actually work their way up the old-fashioned way. My friend Dean writes and directs the How to Train Your Dragon movies.
Oh,
those
wow.
are big blockbusters.
Yeah.
And he did it the old-fashioned way. He worked at Disney. He worked in the story department. He kept working his way up. He got to make a movie with his creative partner, Chris Sanders, called Lilo and Stitch. That got him to DreamWorks, and now he's a big director. So there is a way to work your way up through the studio system. Even people like Kathleen Kennedy, who runs Lucasfilm. She's in charge of Star Wars. She oversees all of Star Wars. She started out as Steven Spielberg's assistant back in the day.
Yeah.
And she went from Steven Spielberg's assistant all the way to being one of the most powerful women in Hollywood. So there is a way to work your way up. And in terms of directing your own films, I mean, I say go for it. The one good thing is there's more distribution outlets out there than ever.
Yep.
So you can get your movies out there. You can get them seen. Where it's hard, because of that, it's harder to make money. But if you love what you do and you want to make a movie, there are still those success stories of people who make a small movie and it's so good that it leads them to a career. I mean, you look at the guy who directed Jurassic World, Colin Trevorrow. I think that's how you say his name. He made a small movie, an independent film, and that literally led to him directing Jurassic World because people liked it so much. Same thing with the guy who just directed Rogue One. He made this great small movie called Monsters.
Yep.
It's fantastic. And that's a movie that's low budget. He was very smart about how he used his effects. You hardly ever see the monsters until the end, so he was creative, and the movie was so visually amazing that, he got to direct Godzilla after that. So there is,
I know, it's crazy.
So it's great that there is still the possibility of your film getting seen, breaking through all the other films, and getting a great opportunity from it. It's happened to me on a much smaller scale, whereas every film leads me to getting to make another film.
Yeah, it leads to the next project. Yeah.
See, the thing is,
exactly.
I think that if it was a modified version of YouTube, that would be a great platform for people, because there's people like Bat in the Sun who do those like little like comic book characters versus each other, like Superman versus whatever, and Spider-Man versus and they're like mini little short films.
Yeah.
But they got to keep cranking them out to make money. They can't. They're not getting enough ad revenue to like do one movie and then kind of reap the benefits of it. They have to constantly be pumping stuff out.
It's hard too with that stuff because, when they do characters that are owned by other companies, a lot of times, Lucasfilm's not going to let somebody make any real money off of something.
That's a good point.
They're not.
That are their owned characters. Yeah. But what it can do, and this does happen, where fan art, if a fan is so talented that people from Lucasfilm will spot them out and go, you know what, we have something that you might be able to work on as a paid gig on something.
That's another path.
Yeah. So sometimes when you do these fan movies, people, they're so good that people go, oh, why don't you actually come in and work on a Marvel thing?
That's what happened to Bat in the Sun. The Valiant Comics actually hired them to actually do licensed stuff for them. So it's cool.
That definitely happens. I mean, the number one thing is, like, you gotta love it, man.
Yeah.
Because if you're in it for money, you're gonna, most people are not gonna you're not gonna be rich and famous for the most part. For most people, the people who are amazing, they find their way and they break through. But you gotta do it because you love it. So really, I always say, just do what you want to do. Just make the thing. You want to make. Yeah, and you got to be open to whatever happens, because it might get good distribution, it might get bad distribution, it might get no distribution. But making something's always better than not making something.
It's got to come from passion. And I think slowly, I think the audiences will want original content again. I think, you have examples like Get Out with Jordan Peele. Edgar Wright's Baby Driver is doing really well. And these are...
Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, that looks great.
I love Edgar Wright.
I love Edgar Wright. And, I think this will make people want more original content again, instead of, mixed in with all the tentpole franchises.
There's going to be a fatigue.
Yeah.
The franchise fatigue started. Transformers did dog shit.
And even China doesn't like Transformers anymore. This is how far we've gotten. Even the Chinese are like, you know what? Fuck your Transformers. This shit sucks now. We didn't want a fifth movie.
But it's a cycle.
Yes,
if you look at the industry, you see that everything has cycles, and they cycle out. So we might come into an upswing with some creativity soon.
something has to break through that's original, and then everyone's going to go, well, let's rip that off.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but there's always that one thing that one movie nobody saw coming that had like no expectations on
The
it.
Matrix.
And everyone
The Matrix did it.
Yeah,
Pulp
like
Fiction did it. That right after Pulp Fiction, everybody came out with non-linear fucking movies, thinking that was the big draw.
Yes,
exactly.
Sense.
Yeah. So something's got to break through that's like new and exciting, because movies, they cost so much money and there's such a big risk of losing money that they just want to go at name recognition for everything. That's why you see so many goddamn remakes, because they know, hopefully people will see it because we don't have to tell people what it is. They already know what it is.
Wasn't that the greatest thing? Is about the discovery of a new movie.
Yes.
Of discovering something new. No one wants to discover shit anymore.
No, they don't have the time. But at the same time, don't get me wrong, I am very excited. We have a big budget Spider-Man movie opening tonight. That the War for Planet of the Apes. I'm excited for Thor, for Justice League. Like, it's a golden age for comic book nerds. I never thought I'd be seeing all this shit on the big screen, but the bubble in the next few years is getting thin.
Well, luckily, listen, Marvel has been really brilliant at making good movies that all work well off of each other. You know, so far, Lucasfilm is doing a really good job with the Star Wars movies. So this is, if somebody told me I was 12 years old, like, you're going to see all these Superman movies and new Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
Like, this is great. You know, my worry is, like you were saying, is like, if you get, at some point, if you're getting like 50 Star Wars movies, at some point does it lose its excitement? Because it's like, God, here's the next Star Wars movie. Right now it's so exciting. I'm glad that I finally saw Wonder Woman, and I'm glad that DC finally has their first good movie.
Yeah, amazing. It's a great movie. They finally got the formula right. Yeah. It's made more domestic. It's their like top grossing domestic DCEU movie. And let's hope that this means that their future is a little bit better too. They fucking learned a lesson.
Wonder Woman was great. It was really fun. It had a lot of heart. It had humor. The action scenes were there for a reason. Yep. You know, I mean, it was, and what's great is it's a woman director. And the same thing, like you were saying, with Get Out. This is great. The fact that you have a black director who made a small horror movie that made over $100 million means that there's going to be more films from black directors. You know, it's great that there's a movie by a woman that is now a mega blockbuster. Wonder Woman made more than Superman and Batman versus Superman or Suicide Squad. You know, so that's an exciting thing to look forward to with films is more diversity and getting different voices out there.
So there's still hope out there. You know, you just gotta weed through all the samey bullshit, but. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting the next couple of years as Marvel gets to their big, Avengers. Look, here's what Marvel would put 60 fucking superheroes in a movie. Let's try that. We haven't tried that before. It's going to be amazing, though, and I can't wait. Sharky, man, thank you for your time. This was so much fun catching up with you.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks for having me.
I hope, listener, check out all his movies, and I wish you continued success, and I can't wait to see what you make next.
It was great talking to you, man. Guys. It was a good time.
Hey, awesome. It was really fun. Thanks for having me, guys.
Jock and Nerd.
Man, another huge thanks to Erik Sharkey. I can't thank him enough for sharing Adam West stories, for getting us an interview with Floyd Norman, for writing a blog post of top 10 geek podcasts for HuffPost and including us. What?
Oh, shit. Geek boner.
Whoa.
As you heard, we didn't ask him to do that. There were no blowjobs. It was all very consensual. This is great.
He's just a class act, that kid.
He really is. And listener, if you want to hear a little more bonus conversation that we had during the recording, of course, we have an awesome fan club on Patreon. Just visit jockandnerd.com/Patreon and throw us a couple of bucks a month. You're going to get access to an RSS link that you can pop into your podcast app, and you will have an exclusive Jock and Nerd feed, bonus episodes, initial reactions. Anthony just sent me his instant reaction to Spider-Man Homecoming. So that's going to be up on the Patreon. Ruggs, when you watch the movie, you send me your reaction. My reaction to Spider-Man Homecoming will be on the Patreon, and a little more bonus content with Sharkey. Ruggs, sell this Patreon. We need people to sign up. It's growing, and I love it, and we love your support.
Listen, I love the Patreon because, first of all, there's so much shenanigans going on in this show that you don't get to hear. We talk like after the show was over, like after we cover all the subjects about stuff that might not be on the show, but it's still interesting if you want to know more about Imran or more about Rug Boy or more about Anthony. No one wants to know more about him. I mean, actually,
do you even podcast?
Anthony did this thing where he talked about hooking up with chicks in Vegas and going and getting bottle service, and it was actually really fun to listen to. So if you like all the comic book stuff and the movie stuff, that's cool. But if you want all this other stuff that we talk about, it's even more like different facets of us that you don't get to see on the show.
I know people. I've heard some of our listeners are fans of the banter. And just like Ruggs said, we get a little personal. You get to find out more about us. And there's more banter. There's always bonus content. And I didn't know what to do with it until we got this Patreon. And it's the perfect spot. There's like 11 hours of bonus material, and it's growing all the time. So check it out, jockandnerd.com/Patreon. Ruggs, tell the listener where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at ReallyRugBoy. You should get on that thing. Follow me on Twitter. Ask me questions. Maybe I'll actually put a question on the show or something. I got some back and forth with some people, and every once in a while it leaks onto the show. If you want to make it onto the show, just start bullshitting with me on Twitter.
For example, the recent tweet that Dan Slott is not going to be on. He's leaving Spider-Man, and Nick Spencer is going to be writing Spider-Man. Quick thoughts on that, Ruggs?
Anything's better than Dan Slott. I'll tell you that.
Shit. Will you start buying Spider-Man comics again now?
I have no idea. You know what? I have to read some fucking comics. I got comics piled up to the ceiling right now that I haven't read.
I'm way behind.
So, I'm way behind. It's weird because I want there to be a good new Spider-Man comic, but I feel like, as I said, they've already done everything, especially Dan Slott. He just tried to do everything that he could possibly do. So, I mean, like, there's nothing left.
Yeah, he's out. He's out of ideas. There is a good new Spider-Man book. I believe it's the one from Chip Zdarsky that's called Spectacular Spider-Man. I've heard great things about that. I got to check that out.
Maybe I'll pick that up. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope for getting the Amazing Spider-Man series again. There's just too many new characters. Like, Dan Slott basically ruined the whole franchise.
Shit.
He introduced all this bullshit and like all of these other characters. Now they're going to always muck up how do you wipe the slate clean? And
you retcon the retcon. Here's what I do like, this legacy thing. They're going back to original numbering. So we're going to have Spider-Man issues in the 700s and the numbers will continue, which I kind of like that. I liked when DC did it for Detective and Batman or an Action. So a little move back to the legacy, but my pull list, I haven't been to the comic book store in months. They're probably really angry at me and wondering if I'm ever coming back. I got to go pick all that shit up and somehow get through it. But listener, thanks for checking us out. Thanks for hanging out. Of course, what do we tell everybody at the end of the show? Tell a friend. Spread the geekery. Word of mouth.
Force a friend.
Force a friend. Hold them down.
They'll
and
thank you later.
They will. Hold them down and shove this into their ear holes. Word of mouth is the best way to spread the love of our podcast. And if you like it, get someone you think will like it. Run up to them. Give them one of these. Jock and Nerd. And then explain your insane rantings to them and get them to listen to the show.
Yeah, would it kill you to put it out on Facebook and go, hey, listen, this podcast is awesome. Listen to this shit.
Listen, you assholes are posting tweets a million times a day. Tweet out one of our shows.
Yeah, instead of your breakfast that you took a picture of.
Nobody cares. Yeah. Replace that breakfast with a picture of Rug Boy and be like, this is the filthiest puppet. Check out his show. Would it hurt for a little love, listener? No, you guys are great. I love the listeners. I love all the feedback. Keep it coming. Thanks for listening. My name is Imran.
My name is the
He's the Rug Boy?
Fuck you.
Did you just choke out of your tongue? Look, we'll hear you next time. See ya.
Wowie zowie!
Jock and Nerd.
so used to not talking during that part.
I know.
I'm like, oh fuck, I have to say something.
Sounds like you were saying rug boy in French.
I was like, I'm
I think you choked on your felt tongue.